In theaters this week, TV's Madman gets his hands dirty in Beirut, and two giants of tennis change each other's lives. Plus at home, Doris Day, Rock Hudson, and Cary Grant take us back to the golden ages of Hollywood's screwball comedies. I'm Bill Newcott, film critic for the Saturday Evening Post. All that and more on this week's podcast, Movies for the Rest of Us.
Maybe one of you can tell me what I'm doing here.
John Hamm stars as a former U.S. diplomat who's called out of retirement to negotiate the release of a kidnapped American in Beirut, a taut thriller written by Tony Gilroy, the man behind the Bourne movies, and the Oscar-nominated Michael Clayton. Hamm is haunting as a man dragged into a geopolitical scene he wants nothing to do with, and the always wonderful Rosamund Pike is perfect as a brilliant diplomat patiently working her way through a man's world. What I like best about Beirut is the way it drops us into a world we have seldom seen before. The film is set just before the 1983 bombing of the U.S. Marine barracks in Beirut, the point at which most of us began to sit up and take notice of what was happening there. It's a sobering reminder that history and world events don't wait for us to start paying attention.
Welcome to Beirut.
It's the perfect rivalry. The baseline player and the net rusher.
One of the great tennis rivalries of all time comes to the big screen this week in Borg versus McEnroe. Now, it's taken a while for this to come to theaters. I first saw it last fall at the Toronto International Film Festival, where I mostly had trouble pronouncing the name of its Swedish star, Saverna Gudnason.
With Borg McEnroe. Okay, so tell me the truth. Were you as excited as I was to see a new movie about Bjorn Borg and John McEnroe's 1980 tennis match in Wimbledon? Yeah, right. See, so that's the problem with Borg McEnroe. The acting is fine, the directing is good, the tension is built up, there's drama, there's sports, there's colorful characters, but really, who cares? Svavir Gudnason, who plays Bjorg in the movie, is probably a superstar in Sweden. This is a Swedish film, largely in Swedish with subtitles. Shia LaBeouf plays McEnroe. He's an American, of course, but he's sort of a supporting player in the movie. There's not a lot of scenes of McEnroe. There's sort of a little bit of bait and switch there and giving them equal billing in the title. This is a movie very much about Bjorg, who it appears was also in his early days every bit as temperamental and awful and hard to get along with as McEnroe was an adult, but he got over it. The movie sort of shows how Bjorg developed as an adult while McEnroe stayed in childhood, at least until this fateful day in Wimbledon when everything changed for all of them. If you love tennis and you're aficionado of tennis history, you're probably gonna just freak out over this movie. Otherwise, I have a hard time figuring out why I'd see it.
Some powerful war movies and a few classic Hollywood screwball comedies come to your living room this week. Here are my home video quick hits. Daniel Day-Lewis has said Phantom Thread is his last movie. He said that before, but if it is, he could not have gone out on a higher note, playing a cruel yet endearingly vulnerable dress designer in 1950s London. Still, the film is nearly stolen by Vicky Krieps as his muse and lover.
Will you have dinner with me?
Yes.
Director Paul Anderson's lush sets and costumes wrap around you like a perfectly tailored gown. Hugh Jackman sings and dances his heart out in The Greatest Showman, the story of P.T. Barnum, and Michelle Williams plays his ever-supporting wife. The film has energy and spectacle, all right, but just like Barnum's Circus, after the sawdust has settled, there's not much to take home with you.
Vance.
Call Dad. He's got that spare room.
I'm not staying with Dad. Hi, Dad.
What do you think of the place?
It's, beige.
Humor Me is a pleasant surprise, a little comedy about a once successful playwright, played by Jermaine Clement, who finds himself living with his high-spirited dad in a retirement community. Dad is played by Elliot Gould, who's in fine form as the outspoken, filterless father.
The old fake heart attack.
Other people think I'm funny. Life's gonna happen, son, whether you smile or not.
How can you be glad to know me? I know how I'd feel if I was sitting with a girl and her husband walked in.
I'll bet you do.
Leo McCarey won an Oscar for directing The Awful Truth in 1937, and co-stars Irene Dunne and Ralph Bellamy were nominated. But the film is most notable for introducing audiences to Cary Grant's unmatched talent for light comedy.
I don't think he's getting enough exercise. He's got circles under his eyes.
For the rest of his career, when the star played his classic Cary Grant persona, this performance was his template. At last, The Awful Truth is getting a new, pristine release from the Criterion Collection.
Hiya, fella. Hello, Mr. Smith. How you been, huh? I'll see you in a minute, boy. I'll see you in a minute. Yeah, sure.
Hello, Derek.
Hello, Lucy.
I had the most wonderful dream. Dr. Tyler and I were...
Nearly 25 years after The Awful Truth, Doris Day and Rock Hudson resurrected the golden age of screwball romantic comedies with 3 hit films, 2 of which are now getting new Blu-ray releases.
Mrs. Jerry Webster. Now stop that. You're my wife.
Some girls just aren't ready for marriage.
In Lover Come Back, the pair play a couple of high-stakes Madison Avenue ad execs. Rock is launching a campaign for a product that has a catchy name, but no actual product. And Doris starts to romance him, thinking he's a genius inventor.
It's the sort of thing a man doesn't discuss with a nice woman.
Send me.
No flowers.
Just send me.
And send her they do, in a tantalizing, tingling triple play from Rock Hudson to Doris Day to Tony Randall.
Send Me No Flowers was the pair's third and last pairing, starring Rock as a hopeless hypochondriac who's convinced he's dying and who secretly sets out to find a fitting next hubby for his exasperated wife, played with eye-rolling delight by Doris. It's hard to believe that films like Lover Come Back and Send Me No Flowers were considered kind of naughty. They were actually referred to as sex comedies at the time.
I don't use sex to land an account.
When do you use it?
But in an era when raunchiness and raw sex are staples of date-night comedies, there's unmistakable appeal in revisiting a time when a sly glance and a mischievous smile were all the titillation 2 megastars needed to melt an audience's heart.
You claim he's oversexed, and he claims you're...
Well, I'm not undersexed.
I'm sure you're not.
Well, that's our podcast. For more on the movies, go to SaturdayEveningPost.com/movies. And for all my reviews, interviews, and videos, come to my website, moviesfortherestofus.com. For the Saturday Evening Post, I'm Bill Newcott.